you, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Is this on? Okay, good. You can hear me? No? I don't think it's on. Hello, hello? Give me 2 seconds. I want to make sure you can hear me. Okay, turn it up some more, they're saying. Okay, I think now it's on. Got it? Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much to the Fremont Abbey Arts Center for hosting us tonight. I've been to a concert in here and I loved it, and thought we should do a town hall here. And so we really appreciate that we're able to do it. And thank you all so much for being here tonight. Who's here at a town hall of mine for the first time? Oh my God, I love that. Give them a round of applause. I love it. And to all of you who come out over and over again, this is my 124th town hall. Because I actually believe that I should talk to the people that elected me and make sure that we are listening and that you know what I'm working on, and you get a chance to tell me what you're concerned about. We get to talk about all of that. So really happy that you're here tonight. If you are now or have been a federal worker that is affected by the shutdown, or one of the 150,000 federal workers that have been fired in the last 9 months by the Trump administration, would you please stand up and let me have everyone give you some love? All right, give them some love, everybody. If you are a researcher, a public educator, if you work in any of our government public programs, if you work at the EPA, any of our climate-related programs, and you've been affected by the slashing and burning of this administration over the last 9 months, please stand up and let us give you some love. If you are an immigrant, or have an immigrant family member, or work with an immigrant colleague that has been affected by this administration's horrific anti-immigrant policies, I want you to know that we are with you, and please stand up and let us shower you with some love. And if you are just a concerned citizen who is here tonight, a resident of our beautiful 7th Congressional District, and you are here because you are furious, you're outraged, you're scared, you're ready to do whatever you can to stop this authoritarian administration that is destroying our democracy, will you please stand up so we can give you love? And to you. And to all of you that couldn't stand up, we know you're with us and we give you love too. So I think that's a great way to start tonight, right? Because that really sets the tone for this evening. And I think it just shows us who we are as a community. We are a loving community that cares about justice, that cares about equity, that cares about equality, that cares about all of our residents that are here, and we are ready to do the work in an unprecedented situation where the checks and balances that our founders so wonderfully envisioned are showing all the strains on those checks and balances. They're showing that if you don't really have a Congress and a majority party that is willing to stand up and protect our Article 1 powers of the Constitution, that check doesn't really work. If you have a justice system and a Supreme Court that is willing to undo lower court decisions as a shadow docket with just one line, on not even like an explanation of why they're overturning lower courts and centralizing power, and by the way, a couple of very corrupt Supreme Court justices on that Supreme Court, that that check and balance that's written into the Constitution doesn't work. And so it really does come down to you all. It comes down to all of us together doing everything we can to use the power we have to really shift the conversation in this country and to hold this administration accountable. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I just want to thank you because I really think that is, you are the protection, and we are all together working to try and stand up to all the horrific things that have happened and all of the things that we see every day. So I really appreciate you being here. I was not supposed to be here this week. I love being home, so I'm very happy to be with you. But I was actually supposed to be in Washington, D.C. this week. We were supposed to be voting. And as you may know, Speaker Mike Johnson sent the entire House, all the Republicans, not the Democrat, we stayed, but he sent all the Republicans home several days before the government shut down, showing that he was not even willing to negotiate with us, even though they need our votes. Now, let me tell you something. When you control, one party controls the House, controls the Senate, and controls the White House, it is your responsibility to govern. It is your responsibility to make sure that the government stays open. It is your responsibility to make sure that you get the votes that you need. It is our responsibility to stand up for the American people. If they won't do it, then we will. And that is why we are holding the line. We are now in week 2 of this shutdown, which none of us want, but we are all saying we have to protect healthcare for the American people. Their big bad betrayal bill cut 15 million people off of healthcare so they could deliver a $7 trillion tax break to the wealthiest billionaires and biggest corporations. 14 of our rural hospitals in Washington state are slated to close because of those Medicaid cuts. $1 trillion of cuts to Medicaid. The biggest cut ever in the history of our country. And now these Affordable Care Act tax credits are set to expire. Now, you all know I lead the Medicare for All bill. I believe we should have a single payer insurance healthcare system. And I have been working for that, and believe me, more and more people are coming on to that idea because people are seeing how whatever sick care system we had, even those people are not getting care anymore. But until we get that, we have to try and keep the premiums down for people. And that means that we need to extend these Affordable Care Act tax credits. Because if we don't, 22 million Americans across this country will see their premiums more than double. More than double. If you are a senior couple earning $80,000, on average, you would see your premiums go up by $17,500. $17,500. Now, we stayed united in the House, voting no on their continuing resolution. And now Senate Democrats are holding the line. And our demand is very simple. Cancel the cuts, extend the healthcare subsidies, the tax credits, and lower healthcare costs. It's that simple. And so we are holding out, and guess what? The American people are with us on this. They're with us. And so I think it is incredibly important that we continue to do this. Now, I have a pop quiz. You ready? Did Speaker Johnson cancel votes in the House because, listen to all the answers before you choose, because you might want one that's later. Did Speaker Johnson cancel votes in the House because A, he didn't want to swear in Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva because she would be the 218th signature on the discharge petition that requires the administration to release all the Epstein files. She was elected 2 weeks ago. She hasn't been sworn in yet. That's A. Choice B, he didn't want to negotiate with us to save healthcare for the American people. Or choice C, both. Which one? You're right. It's both. I told you you'd want to listen to all the choices. Now, look, this would all be very funny and ridiculous if it weren't actually so dangerous and horrible. I talked to you about the number of people overall in the country, 15 million that would lose healthcare because of the big bad betrayal bill. In Washington's 7th district, the district you elected me to, 13,970 people would lose Apple Health coverage thanks to the Medicaid cuts. I mentioned the 14 rural hospitals in Washington that are at risk of closing. And across the country, out of those 22 million that would see their healthcare premiums double if we don't extend these Affordable Care Act credits, in this district, 23,000 people will see their premiums rise. It's 288,000 people across Washington state that would see their premiums rise. For a family of 4 earning $129,800 a year, annual premiums would rise by $7,000. So these are the truths of what is happening. And I want to tell you about a couple of lies, because I think it's important that we talk about the lies that are out there as well. One of them is Republicans say, oh, we can kick the can down the road. We don't need to address this right now. Just pass the continuing resolution. We'll address it in a couple of months. It's actually happening right now. Those premium notifications are going out in the next couple of weeks. And people will look at that because open enrollment goes through the end of the year. So you got to sign up for your health insurance now. People are nodding their heads because they know this. And you have to make decisions about whether you can afford a $7,000 increase or a $17,000 increase. And I have been hearing from my constituents over and over again, can't afford it. It's already too expensive. Even if you have health care, it's too expensive for so many people across this country. So lie number 1, we can kick it down the road. We can't. We have to address it now. Lie number 2, they say that Democrats are holding out because we have put on the table that we want to cover health care for undocumented immigrants. Now, we can have a whole seminar around why doing that would actually help lower costs for everybody and why it's the moral thing to do and the financially right thing to do. But what I need to tell you right now is that is not a topic of conversation in this negotiation. Immigrants, undocumented immigrants, have never been eligible, despite my best efforts, never been eligible for being able to even buy into the exchanges. It's just not a topic of conversation. They are lying about this, and the bad news is they're lying about it. The good news is they only bring in undocumented immigrants when they're scared and they want something for you to focus on other than what actually is happening, which is that they gave $7 trillion of tax breaks to the wealthiest billionaires and cut 15 million people off of healthcare and now want to cut another 22 million people off of healthcare. That's the time when they say, oh, let's find somebody to blame. Let's blame the undocumented immigrants. It's just not true. And so that was lie number 2. Lie number 3, it's a clean continuing resolution. That's what they say. It's a clean continuing resolution. You voted for these so many times in the past, you should just vote for them again. 2 lies in that one. 2 lies in that one. Number 1 lie, it's not clean. Clean means that you continue the previous year's funding levels. But remember in March, when they had a continuing resolution and all of us in the House voted no, all the Democrats in the House voted no, it was because they cut the funding from numerous agencies, including the Veterans Administration and many other agencies. They cut the funding levels from the time before and said, it's a continuing resolution, you should vote for it. On top of that, after that passed, because in that case, some of our colleagues in the Senate, not Senator Patty Murray and Maria Cantwell, in fact, Senator Murray led the charge to say, no, we should not agree to this. But they got enough Democrats in the Senate to vote for it, and so it passed, and they went ahead and cut those levels. But on top of that, they then rescinded a whole bunch of money that they had just authorized and agreed to 3 months ago in a deal. So no, this is not a clean continuing resolution. This cuts funding from last year's funding. So I want to be really, really clear about that. Now, all of this is while the president says he wants to inflict maximum pain. Those are his words, inflict maximum pain on the American people. That is not what a president does. A president that is responsible takes care of the American people. And that is so far from what is happening. What is happening is Project 2025 in action. Some of you came to my town hall that I did last year during the campaign, Stop Project 2025. Thank you. I see some nodding heads. Because it was incredibly unpopular what they had laid out in this Project 2025. And Trump at the time said, that's not, I have nothing to do with that. I don't know about Project 2025. I don't know those people. All those people, the architects, are now in the administration. And one of the prime architects was a guy named Russ Vought. Russ Vought is now the director of the Office of Budget and Management and Budget, OMB. So he's the guy that decides all these furloughs. He's the guy that took away that $8 billion of grants that have absolutely nothing to do with the shutdown, $1 billion of which went to one of our largest projects right here in the Northwest, one of the largest in the country, the hydrogen hub, right? That was one of the projects he rescinded money for, even though those have nothing to do with the shutdown. They're already authorized and appropriated and signed into law. So what he's doing is illegal. Russ Vought is the guy that fired already 150,000 federal workers. And now he wants to use the shutdown to fire many, many more and to shutter agencies. He's the guy that's been proposing that we can eliminate all of these different agencies that were authorized by Congress. So they actually don't have the power to eliminate those agencies. So these are the people that are in charge. And the Department of Energy has now announced the termination of 321 awards. This is part of the Hydrogen Hub set of programs. It's a total of $8 billion. And so for the Northwest, just that one project would create over 10,000 jobs and help build our clean economy. And that's one of the projects that's been canceled. Now, these are not just affecting blue districts or blue states. This is the very bizarre thing, just like the Medicaid cuts. You know, Mike Johnson's home state of Louisiana, 60% of the births in Louisiana are funded through Medicaid. 60%. Rural hospitals, largely in Republican districts. Those are the ones that are slated to close. And now these grants, a huge number of them are in red districts, red states, purple states, Ohio, Pennsylvania. They've been targeted in a number of those states that ultimately may have even gone for Harris. So that's how he targeted them. Now, Trump is saying that he doesn't believe that furloughed workers, federal workers, should get back pay. He can't do that. He actually signed a law because he was proposing it and then he wanted to be the hero, even though that's always been the tradition. We give back pay to our federal workers, period. That is what we do. But now he's saying he's going to threaten to not provide back pay. And all the people around him are like trying to back him off of that and saying, Mr. President, you signed a law in 2019 that said you have to do that, so that's illegal. Can't do that. But my point here is that this is Project 2025 in action. And we shouldn't be fooled about it at all. So one of the things that we also have to build into the negotiation of this continuing resolution is that they got to keep their word. There's got to be an ironclad way to make sure that they keep their word. Because it used to be on Congress. I remember when I first went to Congress, people would say, Pramila, the only thing that you have here in this place is your word. You always keep your word. I always keep my word anyway. But for some people, I guess that's a thing. It's not a thing anymore. They don't keep their word. They break promises over and over again. They break them to the American people. We're going to lower costs on day one. Costs have continued to go up because of their actions, not just because of some random factor, but because of their actions. And I think, this is why Democrats are holding the line and fighting back hard to make sure that we actually take care of our constituents, take care of all of you. I want to spend a minute on Epstein. By the way, if anybody's been watching Marjorie Taylor Greene, I mean, she's saying a lot of things that we agree with these days. I don't know. I just think we have to, give some praise to people when they say the right things. She's saying we should address healthcare. She's saying we should release the Epstein files. This is good. She called out how prices are going up under this president. I mean, I know. I see you. Okay, so I mentioned that Johnson is refusing to swear in Adelita Grijalva. They are turning themselves inside and out to protect pedophiles and rich, powerful men who were involved in protecting pedophiles or themselves pedophiles who abused young girls. Let's not call them women, they were girls, 14 years old, 15 years old. I have a podcast. If you haven't listened to it, please sign up for it. It's called The Power You Have, and I interviewed on one of the last episodes 2 of the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific abuse. And to listen, I was in tears. I mean, just to listen to these stories is unbelievable. Unbelievable to see how this man had pictures of presidents of both sides of the aisle there, and all of the protection that went into making sure that he was never brought to account. And these girls, who are now women with their own kids, have come out incredibly courageously and bravely. And there is a bipartisan discharge petition from Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna to release all the Epstein files. And some of you may have seen me questioning Kash Patel. I kind of lost it because, I mean, the guy would not commit to doing his job and interviewing the women who have real evidence about this. So Adelita would be the 218th vote, and then they would have to bring that discharge petition, that bill, to the floor. It would pass if it came to the floor. And so that is still very real and live out there. The other thing I want to talk about, I know you want to talk about this, is the militarization of our cities and what we're doing about it, and then also about immigration, which all of you know I have a long, or if you don't know, I have a long history of working on immigration in this region and nationally. So let's start with what Trump is doing with the military. He's deploying the National Guard illegally to US cities without the consent of the governor, and he's using the military, the US military, against US citizens on US soil. He's talking about using our cities as training grounds. I mean, it is terrifying to listen to. And as you may know, the Posse Comitatus Act is nearly 150 years old. And that is the act that says that federal troops are barred from participating in civilian law enforcement, except in extremely, extremely narrow circumstances. And so this is part of our American tradition that really sees military interference in civilian affairs as a threat to our democracy, and to our personal liberty, to our freedoms that are detailed very clearly by our founding framers. And maybe some of the best articulations of the challenges in this have come from judges' rulings. And so I just want to read you a couple of phrases from some of those rulings. Now we've gotten them from California, we've gotten them from Oregon, and we've gotten them from DC on behalf of 16 states that had filed a lawsuit when Trump deployed the National Guard in DC. So this is from the Portland judge, who, by the way, was appointed by Donald Trump. This is a Trump-appointed judge. Very crisp ruling. Encourage you to read it if you're interested in these things. She said, This is a nation of constitutional law, not martial law. She also said that the president's determination of why, she was referring to the president's determination of why he sent troops to Portland, was simply untethered to fact. The DC court said by unlawfully deploying National Guard troops and by threatening to deploy the Guard to every state at his whim, the president has attacked state sovereignty, harmed local jurisdictions, and made us less safe. So judge after judge is giving these determinations. Now, of course, the danger here is if this goes to the Supreme Court, any other Supreme Court, I would say nobody's going to misinterpret what the Constitution says about this. This Supreme Court, I don't know. But what I do want you to know is that we are ready here in Seattle. We are ready in Washington State. I have been coordinating very closely with the mayor, with the attorney general, with the governor. We are all ready. And I will say that just a couple things, shout out to Nick Brown at our AG, our attorney general. He's doing a terrific job. I was just talking to him today. Look, he's filed 40 lawsuits against Donald Trump just in 9 months. That's actually 3 times the number of lawsuits that were filed in 2017. We've learned what we need to do and we've prepared for this moment. And so I'm grateful, and they've actually been providing technical assistance to LA and to other jurisdictions, Oregon and other places, because we are really prepared. So we are ready with those lawsuits if they should come in. And I'm looking into the possibility of filing an amicus brief to support that. I think I'd be the first member of Congress to do that, but I'm looking at whether that's a possibility. And then speaking with the mayor, you may have seen he just released 2 EOs today, 2 executive orders, one that bans the use of masks by ICE agents. We have a bill in... We have a bill to do this in Congress. California, the California legislature, that's a year-round legislature, so they just banned the use of masks in California. The Chicago mayor and city, I'm not sure if mayor and city council just did an EO banning masks in Chicago. So this is a really important step. Of course, this is all the legality of all of this, I'm sure will be challenged, but that's very important. The second thing is another of the mayor's EOs prohibits ICE from using city property to stage for raids. And city property being defined as broadly as we can do, that's really important. And we've also advocated and gotten a 70% increase in the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, which I helped establish 15 years ago. And that will also go to legal service providers like NERP and other immigrant advocacy organizations that are helping real people that are affected by this. And so that's really important. One thing I forgot to mention about the AG's office, they have protected, I didn't know the statistic until Nick told me today, they've protected $15 billion of federal funding from being cut in Washington State through these lawsuits. So, really doing a terrific job. Now, I'm also trying to help coordinate with all the groups like Indivisible and all the different groups on the ground so that when this happens, we are ready for it, for a strong but peaceful pushback. I really like the videos from Portland of the grannies playing their banjos on the street corners and saying, yeah, it's so dangerous out here. That's what we want. We want to show that Seattle is safe. We don't need the National Guard to come in here and protect us. We do damn well protecting everybody in our communities. On immigration, look, I've worked on immigration for 25 years. I started One America, served as executive director for 12 years, helped move some of the best pro-immigrant policies in our state and locally around the country, fought for immigration reform. I have never seen, I could never have imagined seeing what we are seeing today. Masked men kidnapping and deporting and detaining, pushing violently to the floor the undocumented father of 3 US Marines, kidnapping and separating this raid in Chicago that just happened, where they brought helicopters in and rappelled down onto the building, pulled everybody out of the building, naked, zip-tied adults and children's hands. I couldn't imagine anything like this. When I came here as an immigrant to this country at 16, it was because I valued so much, all by myself I valued so much the freedom in the United States, the rule of law, the Constitution, all of those things. And to see this happening on our streets is stunning. So it's some of the worst that I've ever seen. And I want you to know that they lied. You know, all of us want an immigration system that works. I've been working on that forever. We all want legal pathways for people to come in. Nobody should be undocumented. We should have a legal process that actually works, that isn't from 30 years ago, that keeps everyone safe, and that provides the real ability for immigrants to come to this country and do the amazing things that immigrants do. We all want that. And I get that people across the country are frustrated about the fact that we don't have that yet, because Republicans have blocked it because it's more useful to them to have undocumented immigrants that don't have a legal pathway so they can blame people. I get that that's what's happened, and people are frustrated. And so people kind of fell for it when Trump said he was going to go for the worst of the worst, right? That's what he said he was going to do. He was going to go after the murderers and the rapists and people that shouldn't be in this country. And so people said, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Well, guess what? That's not what's happening. 70% of the people who have been picked up have committed no crime. And they're picking up not just undocumented people who have been here working for a long time, who have family members, spouses, children who are US citizens. They're picking up US citizens. They're picking up people with valid visas. They're targeting students because they don't agree with their speech. We have free speech protections in the country. That's what makes us so great. And they're undermining that and trying to quell and deport anybody who doesn't agree with them and close off all immigration to this country. That is Stephen Miller's singular goal. And so this is part of what we're fighting back against. And we have to win the country on this narrative. So as the top Democrat on the immigration subcommittee, hopefully when we take back the House next year, I'll be the chair of the immigration subcommittee. I need your help to win the public. And it is starting to work, but some of the things I'm doing are, I'm holding my own shadow hearings on immigration. We're bringing powerful people to testify before us, economists, US citizens, folks who have seen their communities destroyed by these raids. Very powerful. We streamed the last one live, and it was crazy how much viewership we got. We're helping to educate people about what is actually happening. We're doing field hearings. We're actually going to Chicago in a couple of weeks with other members of Congress. We're doing democratic investigations like the one we just launched into the Chicago raid between Democrats on the Immigration and Judiciary Committee and on the Homeland Security Committee. And we're working with attorneys and filing amicus briefs like around birthright citizenship. We're working on individual cases. And most importantly, we are trying to get the public ready to understand what is happening and to help us move the debate. And so if you haven't signed up for one of my resistance labs, we're doing a special one on immigration on Sunday, October 19th. It's virtual. Please sign up for it. It will help you to understand what the immigration system is today and how you individually, collectively in your community can push back and fight back peacefully and nonviolently. So that is really, and it's important for you to know that this is working, okay? The narrative is changing and public opinion is changing. So I'll give you some numbers now about Trump's approval rating overall. Gives me so much joy. It's tanking. 56% now disapprove of everything he's doing. This, I'll get to immigration specifically. Only 40% approve. That's down from a high of 47% approval in January of 2025. So a significant shift, particularly amongst independents and amongst young voters. Very important. 54% of Americans believe the economy is on the wrong track. Only 28% approve. That's huge. The whole reason I would say that he won is he led people to believe he was going to make things better for them day to day with their pocketbooks. That is clearly not the case. We have a lot more work to do because remember, his first term, he bottomed out at 34% in January of 2021. And so people are still trying to figure out what's going on. They're looking around. They need people to help talk and bring people back in, and we'll take everybody. It doesn't matter if you voted for Trump. If we have any Trump voters in the room, you're welcome here. We want you back for democracy, right? We want people back for democracy. On immigration, the number of Americans wanting immigration curtailed has dropped from 55% in 2024. That was really painful to me. To 30% today. So only 30% of Americans now believe that we should curtail immigration. They're like, wait, we didn't sign up for this. We still love immigrants. We want immigrants here in this country. 53% disapprove of how he's handling immigration. Masked men on the street, people hate it. Racial profiling, going after US citizens just because of the language they speak or what they look like or what corner they hang out on, they don't like it. And so there's more work to do to explain, but I do think that this is the narrative battle. We got to win people back in the country. That's the only way that we are really going to be able to stop some of what's happening. All right, I'm going to open this up in just a second for questions. So start thinking about your questions or your comments. But I do want to just address that some of you may have seen that an Arizona state representative recently called for me to be tried, convicted, and hanged. And he called for that because I'm leading these nonviolent resistance lab trainings. And you can check them out, resistancelab.us is how you sign up for them. They are rooted in the principles of nonviolent resistance. So we actually go through, anybody taken one in here? Oh, I love that, fabulous. So we go through Dr. King's 6 principles of nonviolence. That is threaded through the whole thing. He said that because I said that we are trying to seed nonviolent protests and get people ready to do that, and then I said, we're gonna get you, in the labor movement, they might call this getting strike ready. Anyone here from labor? All right, shout out, you know exactly what I'm talking about, getting people strike ready. I said, in this training, we call it getting you strike ready and street ready. And he said that that was a call to Antifa. He said that that was violent overthrow of the government. Now, I had a choice. I get a lot of death threats. Some of you know that I had a man with a gun show up at my door a couple of years ago. I had to move houses. It's not what I signed up for in this job, but it is the job right now. That's what it is. And, but I have never had, nor have I seen much of, handful of instances where an elected official calls for the execution of another elected official. And so I had to make a choice of whether to fight back or to use one of the principles of Resistance Lab, which is the backfire principle. Make their violent actions backfire on them. And I decided that this wasn't just about me. This is about any of us who are in the labor movement, who are putting on strikes, who are calling for nonviolent, peaceful resistance. And so we called it out. Many people called it out. Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona, representatives just sent a letter to the Arizona State leadership calling for accountability. 30 statewide groups, I had nothing to do with this, 30 statewide groups sent a letter calling for accountability. The president of the Communications Workers Association of America, the union, put out a fantastic statement. And so he got a lot of backlash. The TV stations in Arizona were amazing. They covered the whole thing, day after day after day, multiple times a day. The press in Arizona did the same thing. Because they knew that this is beyond the pale. And so he got defensive and he decided to double down, and he said, "You're right, I shouldn't have said hanged. People are getting too upset by the word hanged. And she's not even black, so I don't know why she's upset. So I now call for her to be executed by a firing squad." So listen, I am telling you this because if you want to know what you can do to support me, sign up for Resistance Lab. Let them see thousands of people across the country signing up for nonviolent, peaceful protests. Let us not be silenced by this, because we have work to do in this country. We have work to do to make sure that we have a democracy that does not have place for a king or an authoritarian, but puts the power in the people. That is what we're fighting for every single day, and I am grateful to you for continuing to stand with me. So we're going to go to whatever questions you have, whatever comments you have. If you've come to my town halls before, you know that after 124 of these, we have it down. So we have a staff member, I think on either side, that will hold a microphone for you. Do not try to take the microphone from the staff member. They will not give it to you. And you have 1 minute to ask your question, and they will have a timer going for you so that we can try to get as many comments and questions in, and I will try to do all I can. Before we do that, let me tell you that our staff is second to none, second to none in fighting for you with any federal agency. And despite the fact that we don't have a very friendly administration right now, we still have been able to help with a number of constituents who have problems with federal agencies. So if you have a question that is about your particular situation, please just go and get a card from any of our staff that are in the room, and we will make sure to get you in and try to do everything we can to get you whatever benefits you deserve to get, and see if we can get to the bottom of your case. So give them a round of applause before we start the questions. Okay, and we'll start right here, Michael.
Hello, good evening. My name is Colleen Kaminsky. I'm a nurse, a queer person, and the president of the Fremont Neighborhood Council. I'm scared for many reasons. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you for sending wonderful staff members from your office to our monthly meetings last year. In a time where all of us are scared, confused, and unsure where to start, having someone from your office allowed us to have a direct connection to give our thoughts and know we care.
That's great.
Secondly, if anyone hasn't been to our meetings, we meet at the Dorrit Lodge in Fremont on the fourth Tuesday of each month. We have speakers from the Parks Department, City Council, and more, along with a space to meet your neighbors. Coming to our meeting is a way to plug in. The question is about the incidents vote by our City Council. A few weeks ago, our City Council voted to expand its use of surveillance, specifically video cameras around the city. Despite community concerns, the footage could be used by the Trump administration against immigrants, protesters, and vulnerable communities. Have you heard about this? What can we do as a community to ensure that the administration does not get this footage and keep our most vulnerable community members safe?
Well, first of all, thank you for everything you do at the Fremont Council. Look, I think that, yes, I have heard about it, and I think the most important thing to do is to contact your city council members, contact the mayor. I did speak to the mayor about this. He says they're trying to put in additional safeguards, but I think that this is a different time, and we have to be really careful about, because they're taking this surveillance despite us saying that they can't. You know, they're getting access to it as they did in the state. So I have concerns about that too, and I think you should just really make sure that your city council members understand this is not the time to be expanding surveillance, because a lot of that data does go to the federal government. Yes, Corey. Yeah, they hold the mics.
My name is Malia. I actually am driving down from Edmonds, so I'm not actually a constituent.
I used to have Edmonds. I think you're grandparented in, you know, like.
Well, you're my idol. So this is
Oh,
amazing.
thank you.
I've been so impressed with you. And
Thank
of course, I love Rick Larson too. I am very worried about the elections because, you know, the Trump administration's gone away with so many
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And he said during the election, oh, this is the last, election. Don't worry about it. You'll never have to vote again.
Yeah.
And I take that seriously. I mean, regardless of what he said, they're in there trying to meddle with things.
Yeah.
And I want to, of course, I'm part of the resistance and I'm protesting and I'm encouraging other people, but if we don't have an opportunity to actually have any influence over elections anymore,
Yeah.
that's kind of the end. So what's your take on this?
Yeah.
Country, congressionally and statewide.
Yeah, thank you so much, Malia, for the question. I am concerned about it too. I think that we have to be careful about this one because what we don't want to have happen is that people distrust the elections and then don't turn out to vote. So we do want to continue to encourage people to vote, but we want to prepare, which I think is your question. So how are we preparing? We have, dozens of attorneys across the country, voting rights specialists, who are working on protecting the state level ballot access, protecting the voting booths, making sure that election workers are protected. We've had a huge drop off in people who actually want to work in the elections because of all the threats to them that they've had to face. And so we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that we can, wherever we can, obviously with governors that are Republican, it's very difficult, but at least in some of our cities and places where there still are people who want to protect elections, we're trying to do everything we can there. We're trying to look at the cybersecurity issues around the voting machines and things like that. And then, federally, we have a whole set of things that we are ready to do if we can take back the House, and most importantly, if we took back both the chambers, that would be give us a lot more leverage than. But we will at least pass things in the House. The most important thing to me is that we drive turnout so that it is absolutely impossible for them to win. If we have big margins, it makes it very difficult to suddenly say that this is a fraudulent election or for them to try and take it over. But I understand all of the threats that you're worried about, and I would say it's kind of a bifurcated approach. We got to make sure people have enough trust to vote. We got to drive turnout, and then we have to do everything we can to protect the voting access wherever we can, and be ready to file a ton of lawsuits because that's part of what helped us the last time around. So that's the prep that we're doing and the prep that all of us have to do. Really important question. Thank you so much.
Yes, my name is Ken Snyder, and I'm one of your constituents. I'm also an ex-federal director for Head Start in the Northwest.
Oh.
So I'd like you to put on your ranking member hat for the House Subcommittee on Immigration and ask you kind of a tough question. Is it reasonable for us to assume or to hope for that the Democratic Party will come forward with a specific proposal for legalization of non-criminal undocumented migrants before the midterms?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. We have had those over and over again. That hasn't ever been the problem. We actually know last year we introduced one, the year before we introduced one. We will have one again. It has border security as part of it, because we do want to, once we reform the system, we want to make sure that people are actually following that. It has employer accountability, right? Because a lot of employers would rather hire undocumented immigrants so they don't have to pay them. And so it has a lot of pieces in there around the security of the system and accountability, and it has the fundamental reforms. The immigration system has not been reformed in 30 years. We have the same caps that were put on for family members, for example, from 30 years ago. And you know how much our country has changed. That's just not reasonable. The visa caps that are there do not, not even an iota, respond. And so our proposal has all the ways that, in my view, the best way to prevent undocumented migration to this country is to have legal pathways that actually work, so that a family member can, so that a spouse, an undocumented spouse, can marry a US citizen and have a pathway to citizenship. Otherwise, they're going to live with their spouse. And then if they have US citizen children, which many families want to have kids, then somebody is not going to pick up and move to another country. So we have to actually provide the legal pathways for people, and that's what our proposal has had. We are refining that now, and we will again come out. You know, the big bad betrayal bill, one of the things that slipped under the radar is that it also had a massive, I mean massive increase in immigration enforcement. $56 billion for detention, which is incarceration of immigrants. We now spend more on immigration incarceration than we do on the Bureau of Prisons. And we are now the richest country in the world that has the most people incarcerated because of immigrants. And 70% of the people that are incarcerated have never committed any crime at all. So many people just go into immigration detention because they're awaiting a bond hearing. It's a civil system, it's not a criminal system. That's why they're called detention centers, even though they're mostly jails. So, sorry, I got carried away with this answer. But yes, we have a proposal. We know what we need to do. What we need are some Republicans who are willing to get us over. Or we do the other thing I've been proposing, which is get rid of the damn filibuster and pass immigration reform, minimum wage, abortion rights, voting rights, all the things that we need to do so that we can get those done. Thank you.
My name is Beth, and this is my third or fourth one I've attended. Just thank you very much for having these opportunities for us to come together and have a more open conversation.
Yeah.
I wanted to turn to, have two questions here, but they are kind of not siblings but cousins. One is returning to Project 2025 and Let's Vote and Stephen Miller. And I do not think Trump is well physically or mentally. I don't think he is running the show. I think Vote is a guy that's really doing the shit. That guy is competent and he's offended. The cousin is the AI, all the AI grows that get this stuff, move through it, as possible with no questions asked. When they're really poorly designed systems. I mean, really, we want these guys to be a brain surgeon? Hell no. So if you could comment on those two elements.
And so the two being Russ Vogt as the architect.
Who's really running the show?
Who's really running the show?
And augmented intelligence.
So I'm sorry, what was the second one, Corey?
AI.
AI, oh yeah. Yeah, some of you saw the AI memes, incredibly racist, horrific memes of Hakeem Jeffries with a mustache and a sombrero and all the fake stuff coming out of Chuck Schumer's mouth. I mean, disgusting. I can't believe that this is coming from the White House. And I have been in favor of real regulation around AI. As you may know, I think we should break up a bunch of these big tech companies, even though many of you work for them, but I know you agree with me because you keep electing me. We don't need giant monopolies. We need accountable corporations that are doing what is good for us and not just what's good for the billionaires, because a lot of this technology can be used in all these very dangerous ways. And the EU has real regulation around some of this stuff. I think you're right. Trump is not well. And maybe you saw that clip of Madeleine Dean, my colleague from Pennsylvania, questioning Mike Johnson about this and saying, the president is not well. Did you see that speech in front of the generals? I mean, he's not well. That's a nice way of saying it. And so I think, I do think he controls things, but I think he has relied on these people around him like Russ Vogt and others, Stephen Miller, who are right-wing crazies who have a very Christian nationalist, fundamentalist view of the world and have a very specific agenda. The Antifa, so-called, you know Antifa is not an organization, right? It stands for anti-fascist. But now Antifa has been designated as a terrorist organization. What is really quite terrifying beyond that is that it deems anti-capitalism, any group that's promoting anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, and there's one third one that I'm forgetting now, maybe somebody in the room knows. This is, this is an extremely broad group of nonprofit organizations, advocacy organizations, and individuals that would be affected by this. And it is, again, a way to suppress dissent and give all power to the king. So Trump would like to be king. He's talked about that. Dictator on day one, remember that? So all of the people that he has around him are people that are part of that agenda. And I do think he controls a lot of that, but they also are putting forth, it's whoever talks to him last, and whoever just praises him and tells him they're going to get him a Nobel Prize. I'll try to go quicker on my answers because this is a long group of questions.
Thank you, Representative. My name is Aubrey. I really appreciate your dedication to training for nonviolent resistance. You have a strong history as an organizer. As you know, real power comes not from wealth or capital, but from the people, from us. And from our part of work, holding up all that we have around us, all that we care about. Given that we have all seen the limitations of the ballot box and spending boycotts for officials and corporations that don't care about the law or human well-being, at what point will you use your influence and moral clarity to help organize and push for targeted strikes by all with enough of a conscience and love of the people of our nation and the world to actually affect these fascist groups and their multi-millionaire allies and their bank accounts, the only thing that they truly care about?
Yeah, no, thank you. I have been. I think that's really what our Resistance Lab trainings are about. And I've also been having a number of conversations with key labor unions who have to be a part of that call for a strike. And so I think that different people are in different places for different reasons. As you know, if you've organized strikes, and for our labor allies who are in the room, it takes a lot of planning because the workers have to be ready to do that, and people are really suffering right now. So there is a lot of planning. But I also think that we have to build our risk tolerance in this country for fighting back. And part of what Resistance Lab does is it does that. It is about building our individual tolerance for risk. And it's going to be all over the place depending on people's circumstances. It's not like there's one place that everyone should be because everyone has a different circumstance. But how do we start to think about how we use our power in ways that go beyond just a protest, not just an important protest? October 18th, no kings, got to turn out. We got to beat the 6 million number, okay? Last time it was 6 million, we got to beat that 6 million number. So everyone here should be thinking of 10 people that didn't go last time that you can get to go with you this time. A little organizing here. But part of what we have to do is we have to build that tolerance. We have a much lower union density in the United States than we do in other countries. Italy had 1 million people on the streets, right, for Gaza. We haven't really built that capacity, and so that's part of what we got to do. And we have a lot of people here in this room who are ready for strikes, but what we need is the underpinnings of the infrastructure and the organizing to do it, which needs to come from the labor movement, the organized labor movement, plus everybody else. And we need to build that across the country. So hopefully we're getting there. We're trying, we're working on it. I'm pushing as hard as I can, and I agree that the economic, look at Tesla takedowns for all of you who are involved in Tesla takedowns. It was fantastic. Really fantastic. And so we do have to hit the economics of this and tell some of these leaders in corporations, in law firms. We've had some really strong law firms here that have stood up to Trump, but there are too many law firms that are caving, too many universities that are caving, too many corporations that are caving and going to the White House and praising the president for what he's done when he's clearly not benefiting us. So thank you for the question.
Good evening. My name is Russell Bennett. I thank you very much, like everyone else here, that for coming out and for your work over the years. One thing I'd like to know is, when is leadership going to take the wrappings off of a new narrative that doesn't castigate the many people who have supported the president? They need to be included. I know you made a mention a few moments ago. There's your own feelings about this, but it needs to come from the top, and other people need to hear it too.
Yeah, thank you. I don't. I always hate answering questions about Democratic leadership or about the DCCC or the DNC because I don't control all I can do is advocate for what I believe in, and sometimes that's involved going up against my own party when I think that we're not doing stuff right. You know? And so my firm belief, and I do think our leadership understands this, and a lot of our members who are in tough districts also see this. You know they have to get people who voted for Trump. Pat Ryan in New York is a great example of this. Chris Deluzio is a great example of this. Pat's in a district that Trump won, but he's so awesome on so many things. I mean, corporate power, he's one of my co-chairs of this new caucus that I formed, the Anti-Monopoly Caucus. And so I do think we have to be willing to take people back. And on my resistance lab trainings, we've trained 15,000 people in all 50 states in 4.5 months. It's been really incredible. And we do have folks who come on who voted for Trump, and they're like, I made a mistake. You know, I want to be a part of bringing our country back. And so I say, that's great. Let's do that, and let's bring people back in. We don't have to compromise our values. You know, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, and I'm going to invite everybody in to save our country. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nathan. I volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby and with Soapbox Seattle, and occasionally with a couple other organizations like Fairfield, Washington for rainforest voting, and Brave Angels for like polarization. I guess I come from a place of some privilege, and that the thing that makes me most worried about my own future is climate change. But I know there's like a ton of other problems right now, like immigration, Gaza, healthcare. My question is, how is it that congressional Democrats decided that healthcare would be the issue that they take a hill?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're fighting for everything, and on climate, I would argue that climate is threaded through everything else, right? Like it's threaded in healthcare. I have asthma, people of color have asthma at higher rates because they're located by highways that have fossil fuel emissions, and so there's arguments for climate every step of the way. It's one of the times when I had to take on my own party so that we could ultimately pass Build Back Better and get the Inflation Reduction Act, which came directly from that, which was the largest investment ever in taking on climate change. And to me, it's like such a lost, I was just listening to a piece. Did you hear the piece on, I think it was KOW the other day, or maybe it was National NPR, about how all these countries around the world, in Africa, around the world, India, China, they are all going crazy with solar, with renewable energy technologies, right? Because it's also personal freedom for people where you're not tied to a grid that somebody else controls. And so that, to me, is so important that we address that. I think, you know, we had to really pick something that would get everybody in their pocketbooks right today. And I think that doesn't mean we're not fighting for climate change. I guess that's what I want you to hear, is that it remains a top priority for us. And I know we have been pushing back against all of the rescissions of climate money, all of the cancellations of grants. And we've been continuing to try to push for, in fact, I couldn't make the COP conference in Brazil. I was invited, but I had to go back to take care of my mom in India. But I know that this is something we're continuing to work with governments around the world and raise this up as a top issue to take on fossil fuel companies and make sure that we protect climate. And our young people are, I was just with the climate defenders folks, and we have been doing the work to try and continue to build that movement so we don't lose momentum around that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Esther. Thank you for being here. I do have a question about Democratic leadership. I see it as a central issue that Democrats aren't fighting back or seeing this fight back or able to message and break through that they are fighting for the people and persuade, reach the people they need to persuade. For example, most folks don't know why the government was shut down. Republicans want to kick millions off of healthcare. And I think there are a few Democratic messengers, with few exceptions, who are capable of breaking through the message that. My questions are, one, what are Democrats doing to message better and break through today's media environment? I know you're a member of Congress, so what would you like to see other folks do in positions of power? And two, do you trust Schumer and Jeffries to fight back, and why?
Well, I trust Jeffries for sure. I'll leave the rest unsaid. I trust Jeffries for sure. He united us in, we pushed hard and he pushed hard in March. We held all Democrats together in the House. We're doing that again, this time coordinating more closely with the Senate. And so far, I think it's working. I think I would say that on the shutdown messaging, it's only been 2 weeks, and I think we really are breaking through. The numbers have moved dramatically. The American people are actually with us on healthcare. It's quite stunning how well we've been able to do that, in part because we have honed in on a very simple message that affects people's pocketbooks. And I think we need to do that more and more. The reason I formed the Anti-Monopoly Caucus, to the question of what would I like to see? We need to take on the billionaire class. We need to take on the economic piece. And Democrats at the national level have been too willing to go put out their money for, put out their hand for money on the one hand, and then not pass the kind of regulation we really need to pass to ensure that we can have things like a wealth tax, like what Elizabeth Warren and I have proposed, which, if you don't know about it, we say the first 50 million is free and clear of wealth. So anyone in here that has 50 million, you are safe and not coming after your wealth. But if you've got 50 million plus $1, you just pay 2 cents. 2 cents. That alone would generate $1.5 trillion, okay? So there are lots of ways. There are lots of ways to even the playing field so that the very rich can still be very rich if they want to be very rich, but they got to pay their fair share of taxes. That's all we're asking. So those kinds of proposals, I think Democrats have to be much more willing to stand up and fight for the economic well-being of the 99% of people. And and they will, people will be rewarded. I have never taken any corporate PAC money, never. And when I first ran for Congress, I was one of only 4 members of Congress that didn't take corporate PAC money. Now there's about 60 of us. I am one of the co-leads of the bipartisan ban stock trading for members of Congress. Why would we be making decisions about things that are in front of us based on our stock portfolio? It just makes 0 sense whatsoever. So I'm actually working with Chip Roy and Alexandria and Brian Fitzpatrick. It's an interesting group of people, but we have a bipartisan proposal, and we're going to push it to the floor, hopefully this year, and hopefully pass it to ban members of Congress from taking stocks. Those are the things that I think we need to be way more out front about passing the minimum wage. It should be something that we don't have to argue about, right? Like Trump states have voted overwhelmingly on the ballot to increase the minimum wage, and 15 is so far gone. Like we passed 15, what, 12 years ago here in Congress, in Seattle? First major city in the country. I was on that committee that helped pass the $15 minimum wage in Seattle. So that's what I wish our leadership and Democrats across the country would be strong in standing up for.
Hi, I'm Holly. I live in Lake City. Thanks for hosting this. Hollis. I was watching some independent media about the global flotilla. Really guys like Thunberg and a lot of other prominent figures. Among them are many Americans who were finally released, but were some of them tortured and starved in prison in Israel. And I'm just wondering, after 2 years of genociding Palestinians with the Israelis, when is this all going to stop?
Well, I was one of the first members of Congress to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. I have led on Block the Bombs to stop US aid to Israel. I have called this what it is, which is a genocide that is happening because of the Israeli government's actions. And I want peace for Israelis and Palestinians. And we'll see what this deal holds. As you may have read in the news, there is a deal on the table that apparently Hamas and Netanyahu have agreed to. I've been in this position many times before, so where we've had a deal and then it gets broken, and I think Netanyahu has had no interest in returning the hostages or getting to a peace deal, because then he might not continue to be leader in Israel. And so we have to see if this holds, not just for the first phase, but for the second and third phases, which are the parts about Palestinian liberation and freedom, and Israel actually withdrawing its military, and creating a democratic government that in both places. And so we'll see what happens, but my hope is that this is, there has been largely a ceasefire. I think I read that there are 8 people who have been killed in Gaza in the last 24 hours, which is nothing like what it has been, and we'll just have to see. But I am doing everything I can in Congress. I just put forward 2 amendments in the Foreign Affairs Committee just to say that we should condition aid to Israel based on factors that we all agree to, right? International law, domestic law, providing us with information about US citizens who have been killed in the West Bank or in Gaza. And, I only got 6 votes from my side for it, right? So I'm going to keep pushing, because I think we have to have these conversations. And we have to force any government, including governments that we want to be friendly with or that we are longtime partners with, to actually follow our laws. They have to follow international humanitarian law, and they have to follow US domestic law. I don't think that's too much to ask when we send billions of dollars of your taxpayer dollars to support these military, a military that is killing Palestinians by the tens of thousands and destroying Gaza and making it absolutely impossible for people to live there. So I'm going to keep fighting for that, and it weighs on me every single day, as it does for many of us here. Thank you for your question. Oh, okay, that's Rachel telling me, speed it up, give quicker answers. Can you give me a pen, Rachel, and let's take a few questions.
We'll take
Yeah.
questions in a row here.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yep, perfect. Thank you, Mariel. All right, I'm going to take notes on your questions, and we'll take a bunch of them at the same time.
So I have actually comments, 2 comments.
Yeah.
Suggestions for you. I think you're losing the communications battle. And one suggestion is when you go on TV, have your staff prepare how many days the Republicans were out for the 90 days prior to the shutdown, how many days since then. I think it's about compromise, and I think the second thing, we disagree on this. I would like to point out that if there weren't for the filibuster, we wouldn't be in shutdown because the Republicans would have gotten the votes and they would have passed it. So I think the thing is to take a note from the Tea Party and say the founders believe that the Senate should be a slower, compromising body in which different people can be heard and talk to each other. And I think that that's the way to get them, force them to the table.
Great, thank you so much. I'll respond when we get to the, are we doing all five on this?
We'll do all over here and then.
Oh, everyone on this side? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I noticed in the media coverage of the sending of the troops to the American cities that they're just talking pretty much all about the legality of being able to do that. I'm not hearing anyone talking about our rights to assemble, our rights to protest peacefully. Like, those are the rights that I'm concerned about. Yeah, of course, we need to address something illegal, but no one's talking about these rights that we should, that's what it's all about.
Great, thank you.
Hello, Mr. Powell, my name is Brittany. My question. So my question is, a Harvard Law Review, so the Supreme Court can help handle the wrongdoing through proposed reforms, establishing a council of federal judges to hear ethics complaints against justices and requiring justices to resign if found guilty of serious ethical violations. Do we have that in existence? Is that something that's happening? Because I think it would be a serious priority. Since we have a president and administration that are clearly practicing criminal authority already, they're doing that. And we have to cut through all of the other things. And every single person needs to get out and protest. We need to put a name to Antifa because Arlington National Cemetery is full of Antifa. There's anti-fascist movement. You can call it anti-Trump.
Thank you, thank you.
Hi, I'm Liam. I'm a federally funded scientist at the University of Washington. A hard time to be a scientist in America right now. And I think all of us are looking at the president's budget. I've already seen many of my colleagues, brilliant young scientists, being forced out of the field in order to put food on their table. I personally know if the budget goes into the president, I don't think I'll be able to. So I'm wondering, what is your plan to help fund our agencies, staff, NOAA, NASA, any others? And in particular, is there anything across the aisle done to support what, until this administration has been bipartisan?
Great, thank you so much.
And John, I think I sent you an email. And I said, healthcare is just one of many issues that needs to be negotiated. There are lots of them, but two others that I believe will gain more traction, support across the political spectrum, are the illegal use of the military, the illegal practices of ICE, together in that, and the Epstein cover-up. So I'm kind of confused, a little frustrated as to why these issues haven't been central to funding the government negotiations and discussions.
Great, thank you.
Hi, my name is Ian. I'm in the back of the line for the candidate. Me and my wife are transgender. We're scared increasingly over the course of this past year. It's well beyond like issues of pronouns, being unsure if our federal documents are going to remain valid, as the Supreme Court was hearing about what sex means on federal documents and whether I'm scared about like walking up what kind of trans healthcare is allowed, 19 receive it, 25 receive it, watching this escalate, et cetera, et cetera. So just concerned about what limits there are to like Trump's authority to hurt us, make it hard to.
Yeah. Tell me your name again. Tell me your name again. Leo? Thank you. Is that it on that side? Oh, that's it. Okay. Should I take these? Okay, I think that's too many otherwise. Okay, so the filibuster. And thank you for the suggestion. On the filibuster, look, let me tell you my view of this. The filibuster is a Jim Crow legacy that gives 40 largely white men, I love you all, I'm married to a white man, but largely white men, 40 white men, the ability to block anything from being debated. Had we not had the filibuster in place, and had we actually gotten rid of it in the last term or even 2 terms ago, we would have passed minimum wage. We would have passed Voting Rights Act. We would have passed healthcare reform. We would have passed Social Security reform. We would have passed immigration reform. The fact is, we can't even get those things to a vote. So yes, they are, right now, the filibuster is preventing them from getting this done. But I would wager that if we had won and gotten rid of the filibuster, we would never have these people in office at all. So they don't want to get rid of it, that's fine. But this idea that the Senate is a deliberative body, I just don't think it's true. They don't get elected they get elected every 6 years. We get elected every 2 years. We are the people's house. We are the closest to people. We are out in front of you all the time. It is why we know what needs to be done. And in the Senate, they refuse to get these things done. That's how the Voting Rights Act got stripped. That's how we have seen all of these things happen. And the Senate, that deliberative body, refused to impeach the president for inciting an insurrection. So I get worked up about this, but I love disagreements, so don't worry, I'm not upset. I just want you to know that had we gotten rid of the filibuster, we would not be in this situation because the American people would see us actually delivering results for them instead of talking about some process where an elected parliamentarian gets to decide whether or not we're even going to take anything on. Okay, calm myself down here. I really do like it when people ask questions and I get to disagree, so don't feel nervous about doing that. Okay, troops. Legality versus the right to assemble, protest, all of those fundamental freedoms. That is what is at the core of legality, right? The Constitution is about protecting those fundamental rights. And so when we say something is illegal or unconstitutional, maybe we need to do a better job of talking about the rights that are protected as part of the illegality, but that is, to me, intertwined, part and parcel. And absolutely the right to protest and free speech, those are all things, I know I talk about those a lot. Climate scientist and the 2026 budget, first of all, thank you so much for what you do. I don't know where you are. There you are. Yes, let's give him a hand. Thank you, thank you. I am really worried about this. We are forcing our scientists out into other jobs, other countries, other places, because we're not valuing the research here. And grants are getting killed. What we need to do, and the 2026 budget, if it's any consolation, we're still working on the 2024 budget. So, it's going to get kicked down the road a few more times. But that is what we're arguing for. I mean, part of this whole discussion is you can't just rescind money that we approved 2 years ago. The Inflation Reduction Act funding was approved and signed into law. They can't just cut it. And all of the agencies, they're slashing and burning through the agencies. Those are authorized by Congress. Those are Article 1 powers. But if Republicans don't stand up and fight back, then it's a real challenge. So what are we doing? Number one, we're trying to win back the House so that they can't do this anymore. Number two, we want to win back the White House so that they can't do this anymore, and the Senate. And number three, we are trying to work with Republican areas that see climate change as real, right? Like Florida, Texas, across the country, there are all these things happening. And if we can get more of those red places to recognize that this hurts them, That's really, really important. So we're trying to invest in that organizing as well. But most immediately, we're saying no to their budget. We all spoke out and voted against their President Trump's budget. So we'll see what happens with that. But I really do appreciate that it has real implications for people who are working on it, whether you can survive or not, whether you can continue to do this. And for us as a country, the loss of your talent, right? The loss of that knowledge and that expertise and that talent, which is just going to hurt us all. So we will do everything we can to protect your funding. The suggestions about illegal use of military, ICE, and Epstein, you notice I talked about all three of those things tonight because I think they're very, very important. We have to focus in on one thing for the message to break through. For those of you who are talking about how do we improve messaging, you know, we are a party that cares about a lot of things and a lot of people, and we like to give laundry lists for things, and they're all really, really important. We have to find ways to tie them in. To me, the healthcare struggle is deeply tied to the illegality and the unconstitutionality of troops in the military, because this is all about Project 2025 and destroying what we have. And so the more we can make those connections, the better. But again, we had to pick a pocketbook issue. It is breaking through, and Republicans are on the defensive right now. So that doesn't mean that we're not doing, and it's why it was so important to me to bring up every single one of these topics tonight as part of my opening comments, because I want you to know it's not like we're not working on these things. We are, but let's win this battle, and then let's live to fight the rest of the war. God, I need some peace. I need some peace analogies. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. Leo, the trans issue is really personal to me, as some of you may know. And I'll just tell you that it makes me sick. It makes me sick to see how people are throwing this incredibly vulnerable community under the bus, including too many Democrats who are refusing to stand up for our trans community, which is a tiny percentage of the population, by the way. Not that it should matter. I don't understand why people are so threatened by what a trans person wants for their life. I know that I think in my, because if you know my history, you know about this and my personal connection to this issue, but I think it's because they can't bear to see somebody truly liberated about who they are. And so I am going to do everything I can to stand up for our trans community and to make it clear that we will not back down. We are not throwing you under the bus. And we are going to have a fight on our hands, because just like with marriage equality, at the beginning, there were a lot of people who, you know, didn't like gays and lesbians, didn't want people to marry each other. And I think that there is a real argument to be made for the people who care about privacy and individual rights, that you don't want the Supreme Court getting into your bedroom and telling you what to do. This is true on abortion, this is true on trans issues. This is a violation of your civil liberties, to have the government intruding on who you are, what you say, what you do. So most of all, I just want to say we're going to keep fighting on it, Leo. And where are you? Are you here somewhere? And I really love you, and I just want you to know that I'm never going to back down. I'm going to be with you all the way. All right, Corey, Michael will take all of those.
My name is Dominic, and I'm a first generation college student. Currently starting at community college. I was invited for free to the city of Seattle, but I do hope to go to the University of Washington. My concern is going into my 4 years of education is what the Trump administration is going to cut funding for universities and community colleges. For example,
Thank you so much, Dominic.
Hi, I'm Dave from Shoreline. I'm not sure if this is, but,
Yeah,
it's-
it is.
so
Welcome.
yeah, I've been living here for 22 years, and as a citizen, very concerned about what's going on around us, like, all the different, crazy aspects of ministry and ICE, and, but I guess my question is, you know, we're all in this sort of environment. This is a room that is sort of filed to what we think of here. But we're talking about sort of, I think somebody mentioned about Epstein now. And really the thing is, it's becoming a populist kind of, everybody's sort of becoming a populist in the US. It seems like, I sometimes just to relax, look at Mitt Romney versus Obama debates from 2012.
We need to get you some good Netflix shows.
But how do we get away from this sort of almost a nihilistic kind of demise in some ways, and sort of allow policy debates to happen again, right? Without getting into like, oh, I care about U.S.-born, farmers, and I care about, Medicare for all. How do we get from slogans from your perspective? That's sort of my question.
Yeah, great question. Thank you.
Jayapal. My name is Harmon. I'm actually not a for US citizen. I grew up in Canada, moved to US in 2016. I've worked for 6 years as a from Amazon. That was actually my boss, which is
You came on your own free will, though.
I came here for a rather personal issue, and I really appreciate your organization. Like I said, at age 1 older, actually maxed out at the third week of this October. And unfortunately, my wife was also on a but at age 4, approval is pending to bus itself. So on the 5th, I ended up being forced to pause on my work, which I really love what I'm doing right now. And I'm going to lose my uniform and my health care for my treatment and some other things. I've already sent a note to your office, it's very small, very, very responsive. So I'm just going in person. First, express gratitude and also hopefully to hand you this file in your security
Great.
guard.
Yeah, thank you. And Alyssa's going to take care of you. Make sure we advocate on your particular case. Go ahead.
And, we're wrestling with the oral.
I didn't change. I just dual endorsed.
So that was. Okay. The question is, what, given how complex our what leadership and executive did you see in Wilson or deficit?
Great, thank you.
My name is Karen Black. I live in Shoreline, and I'm also a climate scientist, but not panelist. I agree with what Liam was saying about the upcoming appropriations being really important, and I want to focus more on the money that's already kind of been allocated. So we talk about NASA specifically, really briefly. They released all of their solicitation year. This year, it was 5 months late, and with 20% of the funding that it had the previous year. This is because they were already planning to implement the president, regardless of what Congress approved.
Yeah.
And so, and they've been making a bunch of changes like this, and ignoring what you guys are saying. And so I'd like to know how you and your colleagues in Congress will enforce the appropriations that are actually on.
Thank you, Karen.
But if so, market is now at 14%, hurt by 1%. Dollar has dropped 10%. Subprime and all loans have been hurt by
I'm going to take the last one first so I don't end with. Actually, no, I'm just going to go in the order we have. All right, so Dominic, yes, we are very concerned about all the reversals that Trump has been making on higher ed. And congratulations, by the way, on being a first generation college student. We love that. I did notice recently that Trump is reinstating one of our student loan cancellation programs, not all of them. You know, we canceled a huge amount of student loan debt under the Biden administration. That was something that I, as the chair of the Progressive Caucus, pushed very, very hard for. And we understand the importance of higher education. It makes no sense. I was on the education committee for many years, and we had people who would come and testify before us from other countries, and everybody understands that you invest in that higher education and it pays back 100 times over, probably 1,000 times over, right? And so we're going to do everything we can to protect those budgets and hopefully preserve some of the student debt cancellation, because why on earth do we charge more for federal student loans than even what it costs us? That is absurd, and we have so much student debt, student loan debt in this country, just like healthcare, medical debt. And we really need to reverse that. US citizen from Shoreline. Yes, I represent Shoreline, so yes, right here. And I agree with you. I'm kind of a policy wonk, so that's why it's hard for me sometimes with these questions, because I like to go into details. I have the Medicare for All bill. I will have a debate with anyone any day on Medicare for All, on immigration reform, and I will go into detail. That is not the world we live in, except here in Seattle, where you all really follow all of these things. And so my staff from DC comes out and they're like, Seattle, your town halls are so detailed. So thank you all, but it's not the norm. And I agree that we need to get back to that. And right now, you know, we have a fight in front of us that is about saving democracy, and hopefully we can get back to actually fixing democracy as soon as we save democracy. Personal issue, I think you already got a card. We will do whatever we can on your issue. Small business, right here, right? Wilson and Harold. So this is an official side town hall, so I can't really talk about my campaign endorsements. But what I will say is I spent a lot of, if you read my endorsement, I endorsed Bruce, the mayor, way back. You know, nobody else was in the race. And I didn't think, it just is a lesson for me about, you know, making sure to wait until I know exactly who's in the race. But I have had a great partnership with the mayor, and I've said that consistently, and I'm continuing to work with him and work very closely with him. Just talked to him today about all the stuff on Trump. And I endorsed him because I think he's done a good job. I haven't backed away from that endorsement. When the voters of Seattle speak with a 10% lead over an incumbent, it is my job, since I represent Seattle as my biggest city, to get to know that candidate. I didn't really know Katie Wilson, and I have had multiple conversations with her, and I've been really impressed. She's an organizer like me. She is a policy wonk, actually. She's very engaged in the details. I've impressed on her that advocating for policy and getting it done in government are two different things. So she's got to have a really good team around her. She's been super open to that. And it's an unusual situation. I almost never dual endorse. But I felt like it was really important. And she's a serious candidate who has real chops in delivering policies that will be good for the city. So I've endorsed both of them in a very unusual situation, but I think they both have a lot to offer. Very, very different. Small business. Oh no, that was the one. Karen, climate scientist. This is what's so frustrating. This is our Article 1 powers, and Republicans are not standing up. You know, when people say 3 co-equal branches of government, it kind of drives me crazy. I learned this from Jamie Raskin, my colleague. He was like, Pramila, look at Article 1, look at Article 2. Article 2 is like this big. Article 1 is like really big. Most of the powers are with Congress, not with the president. And so I think it's really important that we push back, but ultimately, if the Republicans refuse to stand up for their own congressional powers, then really the only way is lawsuits. And then if those fail, the people voting those people out because they didn't uphold the Constitution. And then Tommy, economic collapse. Well, it is a real thing. You know, all the numbers you stated are real. And I think that that is why even the Supreme Court has weighed in against replacing the Fed member, Lisa Cook. And I think that there's a lot of attention being paid to all of the economic indicators. I don't think we're on the brink of collapse right now, but I do think that there are some troubling indicators, and we have to continue to do what we can to make sure that we aren't in that situation. I think this is the first quarter where we've had negative growth. I'd have to go back and look at this. I was just looking at some numbers today. I don't know if I'll be able to find them quickly, but oh yeah, here. Exports declined 1.8% in the second quarter. Imports fell 30%. Dollar has fallen by 8% since Trump took office. Inflation has increased. And I think that, I can't find that one statistic I was looking for. Anyway, we have had statistics we haven't seen in a long time. And so the economy was really starting to pick up, even though people weren't feeling the effects of it during the Biden administration. And now we're in this downward trend that is going to be very troubling. So I think we're all paying attention to it and trying to do what we can to make sure we protect our economy and people's livelihoods, because that's really, the economy is like this big term that's out there, but really what it means is your livelihoods, your ability to afford things like housing and healthcare and groceries and, utility bills and all of that. That was the last question. And so I just want to say thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate how engaged this district is, and I really am grateful that I have the opportunity to represent you in Congress and to fight for you in nonviolent ways, and to make sure that we are once again a country that believes in people, that believes in your right to freedom, to dignity, to afford lives, to not just survive barely, but actually to thrive. So thank you all so much. We'll do pictures up here. If you want a picture, come on up. And thank you all so much for being here.